Okay, so now we've planned a full mark answer. What does it look like when writing as an essay? So, let's remind ourselves of the question again. So compare the ways in which poets explore the notion of heroism in the poem The Volunteer and one other poem of your choice. In your answer you consider the following: the poet's development of the theme, the poet's use of language and imagery, the use of the poet's technique. So again, remember we've already explored for this question how we would structure our planning to make sure we achieve full marks. But how do we write an answer? Well, obviously, introduction. State your argument nice and clearly. The mark scheme we looked at in the previous video made sure that was very obvious to us. You might want to begin to make slight comparisons on why. You might want to begin, if you wish to include context. Remember, it will help deepen your ideas, but doesn't actually necessarily get you any marks here. When we're doing our main paragraphs, please take a moment to look at the structure. It's very simply PEA, PIE, whatever it is you're used to. But once you finish looking at one poem, you then want to link in either as a new paragraph or within the same paragraph the second poem at least you're going to be exploring. Because if you're doing that, then obviously then you're getting the comparative mark. And you might mix it up in the way in which you've seen here. So let's look at our answer once we've looked at conclusions. So again, we refer back to our argument, making sure it's clear why we're saying this. Evaluate, so why is the writer present it in this way? You might want to leave with a kind of final statement for impact if you so wish. There's a question once more, and let's move into our answer. During the First World War, hundreds of men were executed for desertion and cowardice despite their terrifying experiences in the trenches and ensuing mental consequences of being subjected to such conditions. It is not surprising then that poets such as Wilfred Owen and Sassoon were keen to dispel the myth that such men were merely cowards by describing the realities of life and death in the trenches. To say that all war poems are anti-heroic is inaccurate. Early war poems such as The Volunteer by Herbert Asquith reflect the ideals of traditional romantic canon. Similarly, heroism is also highlighted by Pope within the work Who's for the Game. However, this work explores a sense of adventure over cowardice rather than simply trying to be a brave warrior. So you might argue that a little bit at the start, although that's a bit of context, not necessarily required, but it does help to highlight my argument and evaluation. So why a writer's written it the way they have. So do think about that. Asquith's The Volunteer is easily recognisable as a traditional patriotic war poem for several reasons. Firstly, its position at the start of the anthology means it was written before the horrifying truths about the trenches came to light. We might anticipate then the antiquated language which makes war sound idealistic. Asquith describes a clerk with no lance broken in life's tournament. He uses a euphemism to suggest he has no experience of war and has yet to discover the satisfaction of battle. Alternatively, Asquith is unknowingly highlighting the sense of emasculation that writers such as Owen and Sassoon expressed in their later work, who both come to see war as something unheroic through their own experience. I've highlighted that different kind of because that is a comparison. It's not necessarily a comparison of the text I've said I would look at, but you can see I'm assigned to link in other texts as well. Furthermore, the reference to chivalry harkens to knights in shining armour, suggesting that men who go to war are traditionally heroic figures in medieval games, highlighting the sport of war. Furthermore, the subject of the poem escapes the unsatisfied life in a city grey by reading with bright eyes about the gleaming eagles of the legions and the men of Agincourt. Once again, Asquith lists past heroic figures such as the Roman army, to suggest that war places the once grey, suggesting borrowing a lifeless figure, in a position of immortality, highlighting the heroic nature of war. Furthermore, the constant use of pentameter not only helps to stress words such as now, to highlight the positive impact of war to the reader, but creates a meter which suggests marching, reflecting the strong, organised and heroic soldiers who have gone before. So you can see the point being made in the analysis to support it. Now here's my link. In this way, Asquith likens war to a game, much like Jesse Pope in the recruitment poem Who's for the Game, which encourages men to sign up by comparing war to a football match, using the reference to sporting heroes rather than military ones. Rather than using the same syllabic structure, Pope reverts to a shorter style in order to highlight the thrill and excitement of combat, rather than highlight a sense of organisation and order, Asquith uses to reassure the reader. Pope's lexical choices are far more active than Asquith's, using sporting semantic fields such as tackle and grip to reinforce the idea of taking part, rather than being on the sidelines acting in a cowardly manner. Furthermore, both poets use a split structure in order to highlight the heroics of war, whereas Asquith uses a two-stanza structure to demonstrate the eternal heroism associated with dying for one's country, dreams are satisfied. Pope uses an alternate rhyme scheme to present a sense of sides. the heroic men who participated and the cowards who want a seat in the stand. It's clear, therefore, that Asquith and Pope's poems perpetuate a heroic vision of war. There's a comparison. You can see I'm coming back to the argument slightly at the end as well. So what about my conclusion? Both poets wrote their work with the same intention, they're evaluating, to highlight the positive nature of war with the intention of recruiting men for the front line. That said, the two poets achieved that aim using heroism in slightly different ways. Pope uses it to reflect cowardice if one doesn't apply in the game, whilst Asquith uses it to create a sense of grandeur for the cause. It is clear that based on the notion of heroism, Asquith's work is more effective in this sense, due to his ability to exploit our fear of being considered unimportant and forgotten. So you can see, as part of what I'm doing here, part of my evaluation, not just why they're doing it, but which was more effective and why. They've addressed all the elements of the mark scheme. Obviously, you would need to include at least 2 more points. But thank you, well done, and let's continue with our revision and our journey towards perfect marks.